Hello, welcome to another episode of Cloud Unplugged. We have the usual stories, obviously quite a lot around AI, but to give an overview, we have some investment by Qualcomm, chip manufacturer, in a company called Context, and basically trying to get like chip-ready AI models and agents running on your machines without needing the cloud. We have Google Cloud Outage on the 12th of June that affected Shopify and Cloudflare, and I'm sure many others. We have the DOJ scrutinizing the acquisition by Google of Wiz, which is a 32 billion acquisition, I think around March-ish time. And we also have the YC Combinator event, which is the AI startup school, where Andrej Karpathy and others were given a talk around how to think about AI and the new software paradigm, which they're calling Software 3.0. So, how are you, Lewis? How have you been? We had a little gap, didn't we?
Good. Yeah, we had a gap. You were on holiday.
I was on holiday, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good though. Yeah, I didn't go on holiday, but did go to the beach and
did you miss me?
Swim in the sea. Yeah.
We will edit that. So
okay.
So it's more
convincing. Obviously.
Yeah. We'll make that more convincing. Yeah.
How was the south of France? Was it the south of France? Where did you go?
It was west central France. Sorry, and I drove, as I mentioned, and obviously it was an electric car. And I mean, we talked about this before, but like the amount of charging isn't an issue for me. Like charging, don't mind. But the charging points, the fast charging points, were like off the motorways, the Tesla-y ones. So you kind of just lose quite a lot of time. Probably would never do it again for just too much stopping needed. But yeah, it was good. No one was really there, as it was a very vacant place. So you drive to, you do your research, you'd be like some beautiful place, you'd be like, oh my God, we have to go there. Look at it, it's stunning. There's like a big fort and beautiful river and trees and plants and and then you kind of get there and there won't be a single soul and everywhere's closed. And then there'll be like one tiny restaurant open outside that the 10 people that are there are in. And
you were there for a celebration or a reason?
Just a holiday. I'm always wanted to
party.
Yeah, I love France and I want to buy in France at some point. And I did put an offer in a place in France many years ago and got gazumped just before I set Apvia up. But so it's always been a big thing for me to do. But yeah, I go there often. I do really enjoy it. I quite like the culture. I quite like their protectionism of their culture. You don't have like 8 million pret-a-manger's and Eats and Subways and McDonald's proliferated across all the streets. So it's all homogenized. So they don't really allow for that so much. They're a bit more controlled and into their food and into their, vegetation as well. They all understand about plants and plant names and things like that. Just have more awareness. So anyway, I'm kind of a big fan of like, that aspect of it. So yeah, I love it. I do love France. But just I don't know what happened to everybody, where they all were, but no one was in France. So it appears, or wherever I was, I think we were the only people.
I let them know on social media.
Did you?
So,
I bloody knew it. I knew it. I could see cars zooming away as I was entering. Everyone, bags being thrown into cars, and everyone quickly going, windows shutting.
Yeah.
So that does start to.
Or the shutters were just. Oh, John's coming.
Exactly, people running.
But do you feel revitalized? And
not with the big drive, and then as I was saying, went to Brighton to see some friends that I hadn't actually seen. Really, I'm really bad, but I hadn't seen them for like 9 years. And they're like, we hung out all the time for like 10 years. And then just somehow I just drifted, probably because of the company and things. Not a good thing. And another friend of mine set it all up, bumped into them, and like, oh my God, we just need. So actually that was really good. But after a bazillion hour drive in France, the next morning I had to get up and then go to Brighton. That was beautiful as well. It was great, but I think I just run myself down a bit. But yeah, no, it was. I don't feel so refreshed, but I really enjoyed the trip. What did you get up to?
On Saturday, it just felt so oppressive, the temperature in London. So we took advantage of doing not a whole lot, which was very nice. It's very good. And then Sunday we drove down to Deal,
Nice.
seaside town, and swam in the sea. Well, I swam in the sea. No one else did, but it was hot. It was nice. Got a little bit sunburn, but that's just on me. Yeah, no, it was very pleasant. Very nice drive. Very chilled out with friends. It was good.
Do you do a big swim when you go?
I didn't do a big swim. Nah, more just a refreshing.
You weren't swimming the channel. You weren't like, I'll see you in Calais.
No, I was going to visit you in France, but then I thought, is he back already? I thought I saw you swim the channel this time. Just this time.
Yeah, I did. I thought I could see you in the vast emptiness of France. I could see a head in the channel, the English Channel. Cool. Anyway, getting on to the news. What do you think about this Qualcomm-backed startup called Context, who was started by Hugging Face, I believe, and Fair, who I don't know Fair so much, but obviously Hugging Face that hosts all the different models and things like that. So they've been developing these RAG agents, and they've got a company called Context, which is this that's set up, which I'll come on to what RAG is in case people don't know. But what are your thoughts on basically a chip native way of working with AI? Good move?
Yeah, I think there is, given the nature of AIs, which we'll come to a bit later, the fact is, running a model, its tendency to hallucinate at the edges and need very specific context and hand-holding to be in the right place. You've got to kind of rethink the operating system or the software to make sure the AIs can use it the most effectively, but also have access to your data as you or on behalf of you. And running it locally obviously means you can constrain the ask of what data and how to ferry that context around much more efficiently. And Snapdragon processors made by Qualcomm fits with their strategy of having more reason to have that hardware on edge devices, laptops, and tablets, etc. So it kind of meshes with their strategy. I think it seems like even if you're not running all the foundational model locally, having management of context run by a model is seeming to be, a thing that is efficient. You don't want to send everything back and forth, and you don't want the user to have to manage that context window and allow the LLM to go off the rails. So having a degree of intelligence at the edge does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think they have their own model called the grounded language model, and I think they then make it obviously compiled to like working on the NPU, so NPU compatible binaries essentially that kind of compiles into, so you can kind of run it. But I think it was like a 1.8 billion parameter model or something that they've managed to run. I think they used the Phi one as well from Microsoft,
which is a tiny foundational model, but it is a foundational model. Yeah,
exactly. But they use, they're kind of known for retrieval augmented, what's it called? Retrieval augmented generation, isn't it? RAG. So when you're basically asking for something, it will then go off and actually get some extra information about what it is you're asking for from whatever storage it might be using. So it could be some knowledge base or a database or whatever it's going to use to kind of fetch extra context, essentially, to kind of add more context in addition to what it is you're asking for to get a more accurate answer, and then go and obviously supply that to the model, and then obviously give that's the augmentation part, and then obviously then you get a more efficient and effective answer, hopefully, by it adding context on your behalf. So that's what the RAG stuff does. You probably hear RAG anyway being mentioned in the AI world quite often, but that's basically what it essentially means.
Yeah, RAG's
for.
quite an old concept, and it's evolving rapidly into just general context management. But yeah.
Just in case people don't know, because obviously you could think it's red, amber, green. Like, who knows? You have RAG reports. So that's kind of what it does, and they're building agents. I think their vision is to help with like the day-to-day stuff. So a bit kind of like, like Microsoft Office suite. You have like Excel and your Word docs and presentations. So I think they're thinking more along those lines of this like very localized way to produce things, emails or reports or decks or.
And do you agree that seems sensible?
Well, the only thing I can think, because I guess obviously it's so early, what they will become and what they're thinking about being are going to be very two different things as always, especially as the world moves on around them. They're obviously going to pivot about, no doubt. But given Microsoft is going to probably embed loads of AI-like things into Office, and they also have email and Teams and chat things that lots of companies are using. Then them being able to obviously compile things that are kind of native and do those things just seems like a natural thing that they will do anyway, same as probably Google might as well on their devices. So I'm not really sure on the opportunity there, but
it is weird because there's latency for managing local data, like voice and multimodal data if you're conversing or typing locally. But the fact is, quite a lot of the software now runs in the cloud as a SaaS, and you're not installing locally. And so, question, where's the AI? The data's got to come from the cloud to local, then be parsed, and then go back up to the cloud. It's all, there's lots of movement, but they're not alone in the strategy. Google's Gemma models and working on devices, and the AI engine built into Cursor for autocomplete does run entirely locally, and it is designed to,
I know what you mean. It's a strange thing, isn't it? So you're kind of right there, because a lot of emails are already in the cloud. It's not like you're downloading them from the cloud locally. It's not that
absolutely just to render on the screen, and all the processing and the context is already in the cloud. So it depends on the software. Software where the paradigm is to clone a Git repo, for example, have it all local, and then work on it locally, and then push it back after you've finished. Software where you're editing movies and film and pictures, all of that generally has large data sets and is local, but and could definitely benefit from this type of.
They were talking about having like a swarm of agents that all do all these different very specific things. So I don't know if they're going to and obviously it's coming from Hugging Face, which is marketplace-esque of all of these models. So whether they've got something in mind that's kind of like an agent-style marketplace of all these like swarms.
What you do is release the swarms on your machine to use up your Snapdragon processors. So you want to buy extra Snapdragons, loads of them.
Loads of Snapdragon.
And then when you shut your laptop screen, they all stop. So it's basically a return to that sort of way of working, which is
I guess there's a security benefit. At least if it's not in the cloud, whatever it is you are doing, if it is quite sensitive, say whatever it is you're producing, you might not want that necessarily in the cloud. But I just feel like those days are a bit like, who are those people really?
I think it's there's not a one size fits all here. Having local chips, but the reality of having to work with the internet one way or another is probably going to stay real as well.
But talking about the old interwebs,
yes,
the Google cloud outage, which happened on the 12th of June, which I think I was away for. I was just whizzing across the motorway on the 12th of June, bundled into a Eurotunnel and whizzed onto the other side, eating
And that wasn't down?
French crisps.
That was all working.
That
wasn't
was all.
affected.
That was all working. The baguettes were still available. The fromage was still there. So everything seemed unaffected from my purview. But yeah, apparently,
So what was affected?
From what I understand, they made a change to the quota. So basically, they made an amendment, which was basically essentially a misconfiguration to the back-end system, that obviously for quotas in general. And obviously, there's like quotas being like API thresholds or how many queries you can kind of make and things like that. So they amended this quota. I think they leveraged Spanner, which is obviously a globally distributed thing. And that quota pushed out everywhere. And some of the quotas set on specific things were at 0. And in other places, they were just very low. So as then people were trying to use the services like service discovery or authentication, they were basically rate limited off. So basically just saying, sorry, no, the limit, too many limits, like back off and retry almost later type thing. Then just causing everything to go down. So even like things couldn't authenticate, VMs couldn't authenticate. So other services in the cloud actually started to break.
But from a high level, I think the impact on users was that SaaS services built on Google Cloud and therefore dependent on these services were affected. There was some big players, right? Was it Shopify? Was it?
Yeah, Shopify, they were down.
And Cloudflare isn't really a user service, but OAuth is a technical standard.
Technical stuff, yeah.
But the Google authentication service in their
down.
cloud was down, which is
it affected Drive. I think it affected Gmail. It affected I think it affected Google's services as well. It wasn't just like. So I'm saying, so it wasn't just.
It's hard. It's hard to tell as a user with Google services when it's because of an outage or because of their great user interface design, because sometimes that just goes snap.
Is that another?
There was a little dig there. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
I think it was quite bad. I know that Cloudflare that was obviously was the big outage because they depend on. They're not hosted in Google, but they integrate into some services, I think, for telemetry and for authentication.
Cloudflare is very. It's not really a user-facing service, but just to explain to the listeners, it provides like the front door to many websites and a distributed network for content and security across the internet. So many services are behind Cloudflare services, and if Cloudflare is then dependent on Google bits that go down, that can affect a hell of a lot of services. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. So that was pretty epic. But you're probably wondering, Lewis, well, is this going to happen again? Does anyone care? Are we all?
I was wondering that. So I think it does highlight that the interconnected dependent risks of like higher stakes when less and less, fewer companies control more and more of the internet, and there's less competition, which we'll come on to in another story. But that it does highlight that having massive solutions at scale is very hard, and less competition in cloud is a risk. So I don't know. I personally feel at some point the internet will get back to IEEE sort of RFCs, requests for comments, and a standards bodies for the whole internet. The internet is built on protocols. It allows all machines from any manufacturer to all talk from any geopolitical background. They all just work. And we need that for compute, I think. We need, we shouldn't just have big cloud bodies. We should have distributed peer-to-peer compute. But that's my little pipe dream and idealism sort of injected in the world. And there are standards like WASM that, promote the holistic standard for compute. But, whether it will actually come to pass is a different thing.
Like says, I don't know why I find it quite amusing, but whenever people just say, the internet and the
Mhm.
internet and the internet, it kind of reminds me of like my gran or something. When they're like everything's the internet, they'll be on their phone, but like, the internet's down or whatever. Or
Yeah, the internet is down and it's in the cloud.
yeah. So the things, the way you were
particular internet
speaking
and a
was a bit,
cloud. Yeah.
was a little bit triggering that you were like,
That,
yeah,
is
the
that the
internet.
cloud? Yeah, that's where the internet is, up there.
Well, just to give you some reassurance, they are doing break circuits. So they've said, so basically, essentially, if things do fail, they fail positively, i.e., if there is some rate limit for authentication, it will just remain authenticated and let you through, as opposed to like blocking you or stopping things. So rather than the default being the negative bit, which is like, no, sorry, no access, denied, it's actually a positive one instead, if for some reason it's kind of. And I think they're moving to like regional quorums, not necessarily these global distributed things with Spanish. So I think they're like trying to work out a better approach so that you don't have such a catastrophic outage, and marginalizing it. So,
And Google are probably one of the best
I'd never heard of them until
hosting
that story. So
organizations.
I was like the other day.
They are quite good
Google-Wiz.
at software engineering, so there's a chance that they can solve all that for sure.
Yeah. Well, staying on the old Googs, they did an acquisition of Wiz. Now, Wiz is a cloud security company that's basically got a SaaS product that will be able to like scan multi-cloud. So I think it's Amazon, Azure, Google. I don't know if they do on-prem. They probably do as well. I'm sure they expanded into those areas, and it's like this agentless style approach to.
They do. They're multi-cloud. This is part of the
They
issue
are
that
multi-cloud.
because they are all the clouds and API led, they have tight integrations with all the services across all the clouds. So Google acquiring them means, are they going to carry on doing that?
Exactly.
And if they're a market leader, yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. So the DOJ is scrutinizing whether this is basically antitrust, as in like, can we trust that they're going to do the right thing? They bought a company called Mandiant in 2022, which is basically like a cyber threat intelligence company. So they already did one acquisition, and then they're buying Wiz. Now, the issue with Wiz is it is one of the most successful and most used cloud security products. Their market share was insane. Their growth exponential, I think, was the fastest growth of any startup, bar now obviously OpenAI and other things that have obviously come out. But their growth rate was insane
in that market specifically.
In that market specifically, yeah. But I think overall for a startup back then, it was radical. This is pre the AI movement almost. So yeah, they did a phenomenal job as a company, but like you're saying, they obviously are multi-cloud and people are using them for many things, not just for Google. And I think there's a risk that they will bundle things up, maybe, to kind of overly incentivize using Google. They might start integrating Wizzy bits. That's not obviously a term. That's a term I've come up with. It's not, that's not a term Wiz uses, but the Wizzy bits might start to be integrated into Google. They might start integrating Wiz into their own ecosystem underneath the hood, and then
it does give a good nod to the technology that Wiz have. Apparently, they have a graph-based storage to model the entities in cloud and to work out the relationships. I don't know if how much AI. I haven't really looked at their product in depth, but having the nod from Google certainly shows that the tech's impressive.
I mean, some of our staff went to Wiz. They early days, yeah. That's so. But yeah, they did. To be fair, like great.
So
great
because they are a leader and they have good tech, do you think that there's a lot in this DOJ case? And do you think there's a risk to the market and the trust, or do you think it's just, or do you think other issues are more important, like actually just clouds getting too big and owning too many services?
I mean, it seems, I guess it does to me. I think it's correct to scrutinize. Like every company that becomes successful, you can't just buy until there's nothing left. Do you know what I mean? I mean, like there has to be a point of like protection of competition. You need competition. Competition drives the right innovation. You can't, we can't eradicate like any competition and because otherwise you're just like, what's the point? I can't do anything. Anything I go to try and do as a company, they've done, or they're going to buy someone and then integrate it, and then I'm out of business. All these companies then just can't survive because they've got such insane growth. So I do think it is right, but I mean, they're not on their own. I feel they've been a bit marginalized. Obviously, this is compared to say Microsoft that does get away with quite a lot, I think, in terms of their reach. And Amazon kind of similar-ish. They've got VCs. They're backing other startups. It's not just that, right? They're an investor.
Nvidia buying every other company. There's not
and
a lot.
And Nvidia doing. There's nothing left. It's going to be owned by like
a lot of consolidation. It's interesting that Google are not the market leaders in cloud. Poor little Google, but they're so massive, and there's so much consolidation. It's like, really, like, is that an issue? But anyway,
yeah. So I don't know. I think they were talking about breaking Google up as well. There was conversations about that, especially because I think there was also that debate around Chrome being pulled apart and actually not part of Google because obviously other devices use Chrome, and so then to make it independent. And
you think these companies are like almost too big to fail and too big to break up now? And have they got more influence in authorities in the world than is reasonable for the regulators to be able to influence? Or
I think so. It's the new oil and gas, isn't it? In some ways, it feels a bit like it.
I mean, like my wish for like a more distributed world, like with open standards, feels like we need to get back to. But you're right. They're the new moguls, the new massive orgs.
And I think we've had a lot more when it's pharmaceutical organizations. It's the same in many sectors, right? They're not on their own. You've got pharmaceuticals, Pfizer, and other large bodies that dominate, and the same as you've got in oil and gas, the same as you're going to have in many segments. But I think because it's kind of cool and very B2C, and they provide like lots of cool features, innovative features. You've also got like the Facebooks of the world as well, buying lots of other companies up and integrating, the WhatsApp purchase and Instagram, and so I think because it is, then people maybe don't mind so much from a consumer perspective because they're getting quite a lot of value out of them really day to day. So it is a funny one.
It is,
but it is obviously not great that you've got such behemoths owning the world so much. But anyway, to not talk too much about that, this Andrej Karpathy talk at the YC Combinator, Software 3.0, I don't know a huge amount about this. So what was said? What's happening?
Well, I watched it at the weekend, actually, on Saturday, where it was too hot to do anything. I actually went indoors while it was so crazy sunny and watched a YouTube or two. Again, a YouTube, it's like the same as an internet. But and Andrej Karpathy, he's a bigwig. He's one of the big sort of illuminis in the AI space. Who was the director of AI at Tesla in the former years, left at about 2018, moved over to OpenAI, had done lots of work at Stanford in the past, and he's another one that left OpenAI with the big shake-up of Sam Altman's and the are they open or closed AI? Anyway, he did a talk to the to YC Combinator, to the up and coming community who will probably go on to start lots of companies, and he was trying to be inspirational and frame how young people coming into industry today should think about software. And he did a talk a few years back about how Software 2.0 is different from software 1.0. So software 1.0 is software. Software 2.0, he was describing neural nets and how trained data-led software models can be trained with reinforcement learning to do highly specific things. And the whole internet, as a result, has changed. You know, the algorithms, most famously for your feeds and your social media and your recommendation engines on various platforms, is software 2.0, but they're highly specific, highly successful as well. You know, you keep on devices and you can see people tripping over their phones everywhere these days because this software is so successful. But there's a new paradigm, software 3.0, where you have foundational models, LLMs, and attention transformers that really scale up and are generalized. They're not specific anymore. They can do almost anything. So it's trying to frame the fact that we used to have just software 1.0, but the world has changed and there's a lot of software 2.0 out there, and now software 3.0 is growing rapidly. And we spoke earlier about how local devices, can run models, and actually the operating system and the thing you interact with is a mixture of these different software stacks. It's fascinating talk. Framing.
Not to be like too controversial, but like 1.0, 2.0, 3.0,
Yeah.
4.0.
Yeah, no, I think
slightly meaningless. I think, but like, what does he actually mean? As in, what is it he's saying? Is he saying if you are the new, he's gone to this like AI startup school, right, or something, wasn't it? I think that's what it was. So it's like you got a bunch of people that obviously motivated to create startups. I guess what was he really getting at? Is he saying if you're going to innovate in this space, you should be innovating, leveraging the more generalist models, and think about how these can support your business and drive innovation? Or
it was that, but it was how to think about them and what they're good at. So understanding that software 1 still has value, but it's more at the edges of very specific things where you actually need to store data. It's good to have software 1.0 actually saved to disk, because that probably isn't very good with a model just sort of spaffing data. But at the same time, people understanding what software with generalized models are capable of, what they're not, and how we should think of them.
right.
He was relating them, the psychology of a model, their kind of human spirits he was using, but they're stochastic in that they're random, and they can be absolute geniuses in some domains, yet not know how to add and have massive holes in their capabilities, which are not obvious. And so you've got to have them on a rein and be able to move a slider between where there's autonomy and be interactive in the loop, so that if you have software, it needs to be rewritten so that AIs can use it, whether local or not, wherever it is. The AIs need to be able to interact with the user interface of software and be a collaborator. And you need to be able to move that slider to say, AIs, you can do this bit. And for certain domains and certain areas like recommendation engines or whatever, they can completely do it, labeling images or whatever it is. But other bits, you really need to be in that loop of verifying, and people are in the loop, and really successful software. I mean, I'm thinking about Cursor, but the Clippy or whatever software needs to really play to the advantage of what an LLM type of operating system of software looks like. It was fascinating, and it very much chimed with my experience using software like Cursor and how far you move that slider. But being able to move that slider interactively and understand and verify very quickly, he related it to the Iron Man suit. If the Iron Man suit can fly on its own and do certain things, but at the same time, he's in the suit driving it. So it's got capabilities, but you need to be able to know where and when to use it.
But does he need to be in a suit? I mean, or is that just his
Oh,
ego?
Yeah, you're probably right. Iron Man isn't
That is
really
the question.
Iron.
Could the suit actually? Would it be more effective if he wasn't in the suit? That is the real leading question. You know.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
anyway.
found it a very good talk.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well
I'll have to give it
it's
a
well
listen
worth
to it, yeah.
watching. It's worth watching. To
Can you listen to it, or do you need to watch it? Is it?
Yeah, it's a podcast, but it's probably best to watch, just because. I mean, you've got the slide deck. Okay, well, I've linked you to the slide deck. You can have a look at the slides yourself and listen to it, and move the
Oh, do you
slide
need to
through.
see the slide? Do you need to see the slides to understand what he's talking
There's
about?
That's a good illustrator. I'm more of
Right.
a visual person, so it helps me.
I'll give a
but,
little.
yeah.
I'll try to have a listen first, see if I can make sense. If not,
Yeah.
I can always have a little whiz through the
Yeah.
slides.
It
But yeah, it does
good.
sound very interesting. I've got to be.
One other interesting takeaway was where he tried to frame where it is now, and where it's going. So he worked at Tesla, where they had full self-drivers, mostly C++, with some software too, or neural nets doing image classification and things. And then slowly over time, that bit of the software, the self-driving bit, has completely changed to pure foundational models and lots of different smaller models orchestrating between themselves to do the job. So there's no software 1.0 in that stack. There is for the entertainment system and the user interface for the user to see what's going on. And he sees that trend happening at large, but he sees the parallel where we are now as very much like 1960s micro machine. You know, you're at a terminal to a supercomputer, and no one had local computers. Whereas today we don't really have local models, and they're not fully capable of all the bits, and most software is software 1 at the moment, with bits of software 2 or bits of neural nets out there. But we're seeing a dramatic shift right now with loads of companies we've already talked about today delving into that local models, user interfaces with users in the loop, and that slow software as LLMs and foundational models take over lots of existing software interaction. So fascinating times. It's good to have it condensed and framed well.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows where it's going to evolve to? Very, very interesting. But I'll give it a listen. Cool. Well, I shall share those slides. I'll make sure I maybe put them in the brief actually when we do the episode.
Yeah.
So people can find them easier rather than having to dig around. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. Hopefully it was informative, and we shall be back next week. Now I've returned. Although I think I might also be going away again, but I think it's on Friday. So the week after that, I've got my sister's 30th. But there we go. Cool. Speak to everyone soon. Bye-bye.